All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to Coffee Chat. Today we have Margy back with us. A while ago, we talked kind of an introduction to grief and loss and what really that means. Today we're back with what we're calling grief and loss part two. Um, well, do you want to start with grief, loss, and attachment stuff today?
Yeah, that would be great. I know we were
Okay.
just chatting before about what did we talk about in the first coffee chat, and from
Yeah.
our memory, and for anyone who's interested in like going back and looking at it, we were talking just a lot about like our kind of my orientation around grief work being really focused in sort of unlearning some of the like very oppressive um the impact of some of the systems that we're living in and
Hmm.
how that affects our ability, especially people as you and I are talking who are living in the US right now, like how that can really affect our ability to tune into our grief, feel safe to do so, feel like we have communities where we can do that and openly talk about it.
Hmm.
And we'll, in particularly related to death and death
Yeah.
loss,
Yeah.
where there's like corners of the world where that's really normalized and where we talk about it a lot in for many, there's always exceptions, but for many folks in the US and other westernized countries, that's not the case. Um, and so one of the areas we were thinking about continuing to explore together in this space is, and something I've become really interested in and passionate about in my individual work and with my grief group work, is around attachment and how
Hmm.
that affects our bereavement and mourning, and also just how grief kind of presents in our bodies and how
Yeah.
we sort of work through and externalize it.
Yeah.
So I'd love to, yeah, like chat with you more about that. I think it's something that saying it out loud, sometimes it can feel like a very obvious connection. Like, sure, the attachment styles that we have affect how we grieve. But it's interesting that it's something that I actually, until I got farther along in this work, like didn't encounter a lot. Um,
Mm.
and that could be just the classes I was in my own studies, but it's been something I've been really interested in continuing to explore. And I found it really helpful to talk about with clients who I'm working with
Yeah.
through bereavement
Yeah. So
after someone, they have a relationship with dies.
tell me a little bit more about how our attachment style impacts grief.
Yeah, so there's a lot out there. And I remember you wrote a great blog post around attachment. So also cueing that for Sierra to
Yeah.
maybe
Shameless
link for
plug.
us.
Shameless plug. Go read my blog about attachment styles.
Yeah, but
There's
that's,
just
I'm
so
gonna put
much,
in,
yeah,
yes,
misinformation about attachment
yes.
styles. And I think like TikTok or like Instagram therapy kind of information that's seeped in there. And I think it'll be good for us to just kind of debunk a little bit of that, but then talk about how that really impacts other areas of our life and mental health.
Yep.
Yeah, go for it. I
100%.
interrupted you. I'm
So
sorry.
no, but no, but the reason I'm saying yes, go for that because I go check out your blog because I think that also gives like a really great overview of like what different attachment styles are, which I can refer to today, but giving the plug to like go get some great psycho ed from your blog. And also the something that I appreciated that you named that I also really take to heart that I want to name before we start this conversation is like attachment styles aren't stagnant. We don't just have one attachment style that,
Mhm.
some of us may resonate with that. Like, we tend to be avoidant in a lot of our relationships, but we also find we have different attachment styles with different people. It can change over time. So we've kind of expanded our understanding of attachment as like, it's not just this, you know, you get this one
Categories
attachment
or
from
yeah.
caregiver and that's what you have forever. There is research that we've seen around that, and it's helpful to explore our connection with our caregivers. And this
Yeah.
comes up a lot in the work that I do with grief, especially because I do a lot of parental loss work.
Hmm.
Um, but it's not limited to that. So I just like to throw that out there. Go read Ramya's blog for more around that. But relate, so just to like summarize attachment, a description that I really love from a book called Personal Grief Rituals from Paul Martin that I really love is he describes attachment as like a deep bond and an enduring emotional closeness that connects people to one another across time and space.
Mm.
And so we often associate
Yeah.
that with our caregiver. The reason that and right, this is developed from early childhood, it's our, like we need our caregiver to provide for our basic needs when we are essentially helpless and reliant on them for everything. Um, and so, we use words like attunement and rupture and repair as we're describing attachment and how that sort of is developed as a child and continues over time. And so, if we think about that lens and consider it, consider like, okay, let's give it a scenario here. Um, I have a client who's they have a secure attachment with their parent. This client is a young adult. Parent dies when they're in their when client is in their early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
If we're thinking about as a young adult, you're losing a parent at this stage in life
Mm-hmm.
where you often are feeling kind of invincible, you're coming into your own, there's so much opportunity and excitement and independence. Like it's completely shattering because this is a loss that happens that is that's not retrievable.
Yep.
And often that's up, right from like an attachment perspective, attachment's grounded in maintaining proximity and closeness. So when someone dies, that separation evokes a fear response in many of us and
Mm-hmm.
activates protest, which when we
Mm-hmm.
think about a kid, when a parent leaves, the kid's crying,
Yep.
they're one raw nerve, they don't know how to regulate emotions, like but they're developing this trust, object permanence, my parent will come back.
Mm-hmm.
When we at any life, and this is different with life stage and then with attachment styles like we talk about, but when a parent dies, that activates
Mm-hmm.
a protest in us and in the biggest rupture we can have because everything in our body is wanting to reconnect with this person.
Mm-hmm.
And there's exceptions to that when we have complex relationships
Right.
with which we can talk about. That's where like disorganized attachment really comes in. But for many folks, that protest and that fear and that, it's so unconscious, like this very primal guttural reaction that we feel when we experience grief when anyone we are close with dies,
Mm.
um, or have any attachment to of any kind, which we can talk more about. But it offers an explanation for people as to
Mm-hmm.
why they're feeling the intensity that they feel. I also think about like it also offers an explanation as to why many grievers are often feeling like they have a desire to do something that doesn't make sense. So an
Mm.
example, I hear this a lot, like I'll have clients like I feel crazy. I'm talking to the person who died in the mirror. Or why
Yeah.
do I want to go sit by their grave and talk to them? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Or why am I like, I feel sad and anger and I'm feeling all these complex emotions and like I'm mad at them that they died. I'm mad at
Yeah.
them that they're not coming back. And so this basically, it's like attachment allows us it explains that like death is sort of contradicting this basic assumption that we have that losses are retrievable
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that our caregiver or this person we have a secure attachment with, let's just stick with secure for now, like it explains why we feel such intense emotional responses at a very primal level.
Mhm.
Um, and the last thing that I'll say that I think is really helpful with thinking about attachment, sort of language and framework, right, is this idea that like when death happens, the rupture happens. And so a
Mm.
lot of what I like to think about and frame with clients is like what repair can look like when someone dies and what that often looks like. It's different for everyone. And we go into specifics around attachment style based and when thinking about what that repair work can look like. But that's where we really think about this idea of continuing bonds and this idea of
Yeah.
I am through like internal mental representation or through ritual, through honoring this person in X, Y, or Z way, I am continuing to meet my attachment needs. I am continuing a connection and a relationship with this person
Mhm.
in a new way.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we are both, it's like holding on and letting go. Like we are both mourning and grieving the death and the like irretrievable physical loss of this person's presence. And in time, when the time is right, and that timeline looks different for everybody, we are like, so we're letting go and we're holding on. We're continuing to foster the relationship and connect and
Mhm.
like reconnect to that attachment, like connection and attunement in a new way.
Yeah. Can I ask maybe a little bit of a adjacent topic question to
Yeah, of
this?
course.
How does that framework shift or flex when the loss isn't just death? Like, say it's about the loss of a lifestyle or a role, or
Mhm.
um, like a loss of a friendship. Like the person hasn't died, but we've
Yeah.
lost the friendship. Or
Yeah.
like I'm thinking of myself, like as a newer mom, I feel like sometimes I
Yes.
grieve parts of my old lifestyle. um,
Absolutely.
like and parts of my old roles and my relationship with my husband or my relationships in general,
Yes.
and trying to figure out what my new life looks like now with a child. Um, there's a little bit of grief and like a little bit of attachment work there too. How does that tie in when it's not really death related?
100%. I mean, I think everything you just described, any type of loss can be viewed from this lens and from this framework. And one of the things, especially with the holding on and letting go,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I think about Ramya and that I do talk about with folks is I like to think about or offer this idea of what are the aspects or the parts of this loss that I want to sort of affirm or develop or nourish, and then what are the parts that I would like to like relinquish or change. So once again, this holding on and letting go.
Mm-hmm.
What is the, because I'm trying to compare it to how I think about a death loss, like what are the parts of this person that I, what is the parts of the relationship with the person that I want to hold on to and nurture? And what are the parts that I want to let go of, relinquish,
Mm-hmm.
change? And I think about that with a lot of losses or transitions, not
Mm-hmm.
just death loss.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's a difference between, I like to always say too, it's like we're not saying here that we need to find the good in everything, because I know that
Mm-hmm.
can get real murky, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is really like thinking about how, what do I want to hold on to, if anything, from this time in my life, from this relationship? So, like, an example I'm thinking of is like, and of course, this can be so different, it will look so different for everybody. But an example I'm thinking about is like, Also as a mom, right? I had a huge and I'm still in transition of thinking about my identity now and parts of myself that I'm grieving that I
Mm,
don't feel as connected to. But I hold space for that. And I'm also thinking about like what are the parts of this new identity that I and like in kind of lifestyle that I'm in now that I want to like affirm and develop. As an example, like parenthood has um I have had to set boundaries with work in a different way. And that's been a really like it's been hard, but that's
mhm,
also been something that I have seen like really nourish me in other ways too.
mm,
Um, so I don't know. I think it's really this like thinking about what are the parts of the loss or transition that you want to hold on to and what are the parts that you want to let go of.
yeah.
And then
Which,
I think tying it back to attachment style, it's like I think our attachment styles can often inform
mm, how we go about
uh
doing that.
how we go about doing that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine it's a different journey for everybody. And
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, there's just so many layers to that
There's so
of
many.
what we want to keep, what we want to continue. But how are we continuing that? Because obviously, if you have a child or if your lifestyle changes or there's like a lot of different transitions, as life always has, the way we do it now is going to change from the way we might even do it tomorrow or next week or next year.
Yeah.
And that also brings me to how much mindfulness and intentionality that takes,
Absolutely.
which can be a little bit difficult if we have a tendency to be a little more anxious or a little more
Yeah.
avoidant or,
Yes.
have difficulty planning and showing up and being present with that kind of mindfulness and intentionality,
Mhm.
which can also
Yeah.
actually be a whole different kind of grief too.
Yeah. Yeah. Like time not feeling, yeah, time being like, what is time? Where is this?
Mhm.
Where do I even find the time or the capacity to do this?
Mhm.
And so that actually, if you don't mind, Ramya, that brings me back to like, because a lot of my work is focused around death loss. And so, but I think it connects, as you
No, let's
beautifully
go
brought
back to it. No,
into
that was just a simple
to the
question.
to the
Yeah.
transitions, but this applies to that too. I think is like this is where we really can think about, let's take like anxious and avoidant as an example, right?
Mhm.
When I have, and I, all of this is the caveat of like, I am generalizing around these different
Yeah,
attachment
we're
styles. And
oversimplifying the topic for the purpose of our
yes,
conversation.
we know that there's all this nuance in between. There's systems of oppression. There's all these other things that we are living in. But
Hmm.
if we're thinking about a trend that I tend to see with a lot of the clients I work with, right? If we have an anxious, so let's say a loved one dies who we had an anxious attachment with.
Hmm.
What I am often seeing in the client, or what I hear from the client, is a lot of emotional flooding, a lot
Hmm.
of rumination, and having a really, they are really stuck on that holding on. They are holding on to that relationship with everything that they
Hmm.
have, and there's some enmeshment a lot of times, and like having a really hard time with the letting go
Hmm.
or with the giving themselves permission for many different reasons to start to repair
Hmm.
that attachment wound.
Hmm.
And I say that knowing that this is not like this easy, yeah, I'm just going to decide to repair this wound from a death loss. Like this is incredibly painful. There's different timelines for everybody.
Hmm.
But what I'm often seeing is this looks like the person will describe to me that they are like dying alongside their loved one. They feel
Hmm.
incredibly anxious and sad. And that is because there was this anxious attachment they had. They were, for whatever reason, right? Like really maybe codependent, reliant on this person in some way, not always, but that does come up. And so they are what we often think about and what I talk about with people with those types of connections with the person who died is really focusing on finding a community, finding attunement from others who are going through a shared experience, which is also my promotion for grief groups,
Mm-hmm.
or just other humans that they can connect with around a similar loss, and finding who I like to say grief partner, like finding who their grief partners are to be
Mm-hmm.
able to safely begin to explore this letting go and this restoration orientation space too, that I like to think about of like I am I am continuing bonds with this person in the ways that are healthy and that I want to continue to remember and foster. I'm repairing this connection in these ways, um, in a way that helps my grieving and like helps me to be able to. I don't remember what I was going to say after that, but helps me to be able to really, it's like reorganizing these attachment
Yeah. Yeah.
behaviors.
And like
Yeah.
healing and grounding and coming back to what feels
Yes.
authentic to us in that moment after these losses, after the death or whatever it is.
Yeah, and then like similar, and then on the flip side of this, right? And oh, I wanted to say one other thing about a pattern that I tend to notice with clients that lost someone who they had a more anxious attachment with is they're also like just, yeah, really wanting to hold on to all parts of this person and really struggling to start to release or reorganize and let go. As an example, like I have a client who did not want to move any article of clothing of her spouse's for like a year. And that is so understandable, right? I also want to really emphasize that none of this means you're grieving in a bad or good way. I think this informs, right, like how informs where someone's at and allows us to be able to work together to like get them the support
Mm-hmm.
that they need. So, for example, this client had a lot of anxious attachment after losing, or a lot of anxious attachment was activated after losing her spouse and could not could not move anything of her spouse's and
Mm-hmm.
for a long time and what we ended up kind of our work together was figuring out ways to be able like who could support her. She got to a point where we were like, we need to move, like the stuff needs to move for a variety of different reasons. And I am feeling suffocated. It's like I can't let go of him. And I'm recognizing that there's a part of this that just feels really like it's depleting
Mm-hmm.
everything around who I am as a person. And so we talked a lot about this is where we kind of went into the like, what are the aspects of the relationship with him that you want to continue honoring and fostering and loving? What are parts of your house that you want to stay connected to him through? So it ended up turning into like friends came over, slowly helped with donating some of the items of clothes of his, which was something that was really important to her that we had come up with as a way to honor him. And then like did an artwork, did like a painting on the wall to sort of
Oh,
honor him. And like it felt like this marked transition, right? Of like
yeah, that's
the
beautiful.
life that we had together. I will always be grieving that.
Yeah.
And there is this like, this is the rupture that happened, and the repair is like, this is the parts of him I want to honor and stay connected to and remember, but like in a new way. The
Mm-hmm.
relationship looks different. Um, and now that person's dating and like has started, and And this is just one example. This looks so different for everybody. But I think on the flip side, what I see with avoidant attachment often, right, is that like grief, we are pushing that grief down. We are avoiding it. It's delayed, it's masked, it's inhibited. Don't
Mm-hmm.
want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. We're terrified of it,
Yep.
and right, emotions don't feel safe. The grief is
Yep.
scary. And we've learned, like, for those of us that are kind of avoiders, like we've learned from a young age that we take care of ourselves. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we, and so what I often see here is like I have a client who had anxious attachment with a parent who died. That parent stuff was packed up and gone. Funeral was done within a week. Done.
Mm.
And they're like, cool, okay,
I'm done grieving.
I'm done. I'm done. I did my thing. I'm back to work. And they
Yep.
actually, interestingly, came to my grief group a year later after mom had died and was like, I'm noticing like something doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting with some emotions that they are coming out in way like I'm irritable. I am feeling dissatisfied with my life. I'm having some panic attacks and like, I don't like this. What's going on? I did all of the things. I did all of the checklist items for this parent
Yeah.
who died. And so a lot of our work was actually like expanding emotional expression. They
Mm-hmm.
were doing all the letting go
They were
and
doing all the
actually,
physical work, but not much of the mental
yes,
and emotional work.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so we're really focused on like, we have excessive restoration going on, and we actually need to like tune into the emotions and to everything that
Mm-hmm.
you were saying earlier, Ramya, like through that somatic work, mindfulness work. And that often feels really inaccessible and really
Mm-hmm.
scary for so many different reasons that we
Mm-hmm.
know. And so a lot of our work is around accessing the grief emotions, tuning into it, releasing it, like processing that.
Yeah.
Um, what feels hard or scary to talk about. And and so that's where a lot of my work is around relationships that may have had more of that avoidance in them
Mm-hmm.
for a variety of different reasons.
Yeah.
So the rupture still happens, but the repair and the journey around that continuing bonds work looks really different. And
Mm-hmm.
then, right, for like disorganized, this is where we have a lot of complex grief
Mm-hmm.
due to complicated relationships, trauma, abuse history.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times we're seeing an oscillation
Mm-hmm.
between avoidance and anxiety,
Yeah.
um, which is so understandable. And
Yeah.
so we're kind of, we're just using this as a framework to be able to really, a lot of what it is just like normalizing that, like, and I'm a
Mm-hmm.
relational therapist. And so
Me
much of this
too.
is just like, yeah, like these are human, like we are connected with other people. And when that connection is severed or ruptured through death, or when a loss or transition happens, it activates a
Yeah.
system
Mm-hmm.
and affects our body, affects our emotional regulation. And when we are living, to kind of summarize, to put a little bow on it, right? Like when we are living in a society or culture that doesn't, that is not community focused, that is oppressive in many different ways for many different groups of people, when our bereavement leave is frequently like 2 to 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
we're just continuing to kind of like reinforce a very oppressive
Mm-hmm.
and a system that is not supportive.
Yeah.
of healthy bereavement,
Right.
allowing space for these attachments. Um, we don't often use language like this to think about it.
Hmm.
I cannot tell you the number of clients I work with who feel like they are doing something wrong.
Mm. Oh, we lost audio there for a second.
Affirming and normalizing through
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
through this lens.
Hmm.
Like, yep, you're a human. You're
Hmm.
connected to another human, and like this is how this is why you're feeling this way.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's my
Yeah.
attachment and grief
I love
summary.
it. I know that's like, I know it feels like we just scratched the surface because there's so many more nuances and layers as we always talk about. But thank you so much for setting aside some time to talk about it today,
Yes,
Margy.
of course.
Any last thoughts or like quick things that maybe we didn't get to today?
Yeah, I know there's so much more to talk about, and I just want to emphasize, like, yeah, this is scratching the surface. There's so many nuances and like parts of our lived experiences and identities that factor into this. So I just want to name that. And also, I cannot emphasize enough. I know I'm a broken record at this point, but this is why I find grief group work and grieving
Mm-hmm.
in community so important and something
Mm-hmm.
that we are often so lacking um, in our society, especially here in the US. So I just wanted to put a plug out there. If you are watching this and if any of this is resonating with you, like feel free to also connect with me about some of the grief groups that I'm running, but also there's other great ones that are happening in the Chicagoland area, in Illinois, and also I have some good resources for like national support groups that are happening,
Yeah.
and happy to connect with anybody that is looking for community as they are grieving.
Yeah. And maybe we can set aside some time to do another segment on that.
Yeah, that would be great. Always love
Yeah.
talking about group work.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for sitting down with me today, Marty, for another wonderful coffee chat. And thanks for everybody tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for holding the space, Ramya.
Yeah, always.